Hi, everybody. Today we are not finishing, we're continuing to learn about the context of the speaking environment. We're learning about our three areas of context. First one was what's the purpose, which y'all already know a good amount about. Then we learned about who's the audience, and today we're learning about what's the setting. It's really important to take into consideration what the setting is of your speech because every speech setting offers unique opportunities and challenges to the speaker. And so let's get started with our four different types of settings that we can encounter, and we'll learn about what some of those opportunities and challenges are. The first type of setting is one that we're all pretty familiar with, is a small room. That can be a boardroom or a conference room or a classroom like the one that we normally meet in. So y'all are pretty familiar with giving speeches in small rooms because that's all we've done so far. In a small room, you need to know your content really, really well. And this is because audiences are typically going to expect speakers to be much more extemporaneous in a small room. Hopefully, y'all know this by now, but extemporaneous means not memorized, but not reading right off of a script. If you memorize a speech, it can come off as like very formal and not really wanting to deviate from it any because that is what you know, it's what you've memorized. That can seem a little too formal for a small room. Similarly, if you're just reading off of a script, there's not a lot of delivery being incorporated and not a lot of eye contact being made, just looking at a piece of paper. And that's, again, a little too formal for a small room. So in a small room, your audience is going to expect you to be more extemporaneous because it's a much more intimate setting. You're all a lot closer. There's a smaller audience, so it should be a little more interactive. Because the setting is more intimate, this allows for more opportunities for you as a speaker to interact with your audience. Speakers can move around, or you can address specific people in the audience. Y'all are really into this during your impromptu speeches, and you can incorporate that into your formal speeches as well. And so having a small room is it's nice. It's small, it's low pressure, smaller audience, more intimate, not memorized, but not reading off a script either. It's what you're pretty much used to. Another thing to note is that there are standard acoustics, which means that sound is projected normally, so you don't need a microphone or megaphone or anything else weird. However, it's still very important to project your voice to convey confidence and to sound smart. Like this clip from SpongeBob.
But I have a theory. People talk loud when they want to act smart, right? Correct!
Oh, Plankton, you're so smart because he spoke loudly. He sounded confident and smart. Some of y'all, most of y'all are pretty good at your volume. I think y'all have learned at this point. But some of my oral comm kids are just sweet little whispers, and I can't hear what they say ever because they're so quiet and soft spoken. And so, even though, like, yeah, you might be audible, you still make sure that you are speaking powerfully and sounding confident. Our first type of setting was a small room. Our second type is a large room. For a large room, it is less intimate than a small room because it is a lot larger. So, what does that mean for us? Well, it's less intimate because the speaker and the audience are separated by physical barriers, such as a podium. That's why I don't really love using the podium in a small room because a lot of us kind of tend to hide behind it and use it as kind of like a security thing between us and the audience. So it's not really a great thing to use unless you've practiced with it, you know how to use it well. There's also just the elevated stage. You are physically above your audience and separated from them just by a height kind of difference. Then also the quantity of chairs. Like y'all have probably felt this in chapel, like you are already separated from the speaker because of the stage and the podium. And there's just a lot of like actual chairs and humans between you and the speaker. It feels like you're separated. So it's a lot less intimate because of all the things going on in that way. And again, just the sheer number of audience members makes it feel less intimate because it's not intimate. There's a ton of people in there. It is not really intimate in any way. And that means that it is harder to keep your audience's attention because they feel unseen. Even if you've never experienced this yourself, you've probably seen someone taking a nap during chapel or taking notes or just goofing off in general because they don't feel responsible to the speaker because they don't feel like the speaker can see them. Helpful hint, they totally can see you. So make sure that as audience members in all speaking situations, but especially in a large room, you are trying your best to pay attention to the speaker and be an ethical listener. But also, as a speaker, if you are in a large room, you got to make sure you work hard to keep your audience's attention because all of these things are going to make them feel like they are able to goof off and not focus as much as they should. In a large room, you will see a little bit more manuscript speeches. So that means you are reading directly from your script. But of course, like that still means you have to have a strong delivery. So just because you have your full speech right in front of you doesn't mean you can just go totally robot and not use any facial expressions or any hand gestures or any tone of voice. You, if anything, need more of those things. So if you think about like the way our presidents give speeches, they usually have like a teleprompter with their full script in front of them, like right next to the camera. So they have their full speech in front of them, but they still put an emphasis on delivery as they speak. So even though you have your whole speech in front of you, delivery is still important. And then lastly, for a larger room, prepare for use of a microphone. So you have a bigger audience, you have more people to project to. So it would be a good idea to call ahead to the venue where you're speaking at and figure out what kind of microphones they have. If you can request a specific kind of microphone you're more comfortable working with, because that would probably be frustrating if you anticipate that you're going to have your notes set down and you think you're going to have like a microphone on a stand so you can have both of your hands for gestures, but oh no, you get there and they only have a microphone that you have to hold. That could throw off the way you prepared and kind of make you feel a little more nervous because that's an unknown thing you didn't anticipate. So prepare for using that microphone, practice with the microphone you're going to be using so you can know how you're going to sound, how it's going to feel, how that might affect your hand gestures. Our third type of speech setting after small room and large room is an outdoor speech. And y'all know this, but I love outdoor speeches. It allows for speakers to use environmental cues to reinforce their message in a really neat way. So, for example, in our college speech class, this is going to both speakers or both classes, but in the Tuesday, Thursday, Friday one, two of our students gave speeches out at the baseball field to show us how to either field a ground ball or ground a field ball. I don't remember honestly, but it was one of those two. Sorry, speaker. And then they showed us how to throw a specific kind of ball in a way. And so it was really cool to be at the baseball field because, like, yeah, I guess they could show us like a video of that happening like in the classroom, but the impact was so much greater because we were at the baseball field where these things actually take place and are useful to these students. So it was really neat to use the environmental cues in that way. However, we got to be ready for environmental distractions and level of interference increasing. If you're speaking outside, it could start raining. It could be really hot and the sun's really bright and you're having to squint at everybody, and then that can mess up your facial expressions. A bird could poop on you. Um, people could just be interfering. So when we were at the baseball field, this like PE class walked up and was just kind of like being really loud and playful because it's their PE class, and so the speaker had to be like, "Hey, can y'all just chill for 5 seconds?" Or when I taught at the university, we would go to the Greek theater sometimes if it was like a nice day, and then we'd be doing class, and then some random students would just walk up and just be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And we're like, "We're doing class here, buddy." So lots of distractions can occur with outdoor speeches. So just make sure you try to preempt those and prevent them as much as you can. Have a backup plan. Otherwise, if you have the opportunity to use outdoor cues to reinforce your speech, I would highly recommend it because it is very, very interesting. And then for our, before I go to the fourth setting, I just want to do a little review. So pause the video real quick and look at these pictures and try and identify which one's a large room, which one's a small room, and which one's outdoors. Hopefully you pause the video or you just figured it out pretty quick because it's pretty straightforward. So if you just look at these two and compare them, this looks more like our classroom. So this is probably a small room. And this, just based off of the podium and the elevated stage and the sheer number of audience members and seats, that would be a large room. And then she is outside. So it is an outside speech. And you can see that she has a purpose for being here. She's not just giving an outdoor speech for funsies, but it looks like some kind of groundbreaking ceremony. So it makes sense to be outside then. And then one more thing I want to talk about for giving out, not outdoor speeches, sorry. First, I guess any speech, but I guess it'd be more for small room for walking around. I guess for smaller, if you're walking around your audience, or for a large room, just walking across the stage in general. Well, I guess you can walk around outdoors too. Well, this is important for all of them, but I wanted to talk about how we want to be walking around the stage purposefully. I remember I added this in. So for our demonstration speeches, a lot of y'all incorporated some purposeful walking, and I love that. but it didn't seem to be super well timed. It's more of a distraction to some of y'all than anything else. Like, okay, I need to be walking now, or I should not be walking now. So here's one thing that one of my professors taught me when I first started doing public speaking. And this is great for any setting, but you can kind of like, you'll notice in a second that this is a very formal, kind of like polished style of walking. So you can modify it to be a little more loose and casual for small room or for outdoor, and then follow this like probably pretty strictly for large room or something if you wanted to. So do with that what you will. Sorry, I was talking myself in a circle. But if you are wanting to walk around in the setting that you are in for giving your speech, and you're trying to figure out, okay, like, well, how should I time this? One student, I saw them do this, my professor pointed this out to me, was that if you start your speech maybe in the middle of the room, for example, you're doing your introduction right here, and then as you transition to your next main point, that's when you walk. So you would start here, and then you would give your first main point right here. So during the transition between the two, you're walking. So it's like a physical transition and also like a figurative transition into your speech. Then you give your first point there, you'll give your second point over here. And so in your first point, you say your first point, then you transition, and then you give your second point right here. So I think this is really helpful if you need help trying to figure out how to make the walking more polished. Because I think I've put in a lot of y'all speeches like, oh, blah, 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 purposeful walking. And so it's like, what does that actually mean? So for any setting, walking can be a really great way to kind of like liven up the speech, get audience attention. I know y'all felt it whenever the speaker kind of like gets off stage in chapel, you're like, whoa, whoa, what are they doing? Or in class, if a teacher starts walking towards you, you're like, oh, okay, you start typing a little more aggressive. Like, I am paying attention. So walking can be a great way in any setting to get your audience's attention, and this is a way to make it a little more purposeful and polished. And of course, you just repeat like the same kind of like, okay, when I go to my third main point, I transition as I'm walking there, and then I plant, and then I give the part of the speech that I'm talking about. And of course, more practice of your speech is needed if you plan to walk around. We all practice a lot anyways because y'all are beautiful and perfect. I'm going to take that into consideration for your setting, that like this would be probably pretty appropriate for a large room speech where it's more formal. For a smaller room, something very similar to this could be useful, just maybe like loosen it up a little bit to not as rigid. Our fourth type of speaking situation, or I'm sorry, speaking setting, we have a small room, large room, outdoor. Now we're going to have just like mediated speaking situations. So these are going to be done through media or online. Usually I take this slide out because I think conference calls are like a little outdated. We don't use them a ton, but coronavirus is a thing. And so they totally do happen now. So a conference call is the first one that we're going to talk about. It's the use of electronics to connect more than two parties on the same call. Normally, because it's called a call, we think of it as being just on the telephone. And that's why I think it's kind of outdated. But video services are making this much more of a common thing, especially today with Zoom and all the things with businesses still having to meet for coronavirus stuff. So conference calls, connecting two or more parties on the same call, can be on the phone or through video services. If you are doing a conference call and one of the parties is like a smaller audience, like 20 or less, the audiences should be introduced to each other. Just because that kind of makes it feel like they have more of a responsibility to pay attention to the message. Because like we talked about the large room stuff, it's like for the large room, there's like chairs and the podium and the stage. So there's like a lot of barriers there to make it feel less intimate. For this, your audience isn't actually even physically present. So like if they want to goof off and not pay attention, they totally can. So if you have your audience introduce themselves to each other and to you, this can be a really helpful way to kind of like draw them back in, recognize the speech as a conversation, make you feel a little more comfortable, and then hopefully just like create a little more of a sense of intimacy with the speech. And then for conference call, last thing, speakers need to pay attention to the structure of their presentation to make sure you maintain focus and minimize distractions. So for a few of the Zoom calls I've been on in the last few weeks with quarantine stuff, it's just been kind of like a, hey, we're all just having a conversation, catching up. But for some conference calls, they're going to say, hey, I want you to pitch this idea, or hey, I want you to give this presentation. So it actually is a speech. So make sure that even though you're doing it on a conference call, you should still be presenting. You should still have an outline. You should still have notes. You should still focus on delivery. And that'll help your audience pay more attention because they feel like, okay, there's actually a purpose for us being here. So that'll maintain focus and minimize distractions. Two other kinds of mediated or online speeches we have are not necessarily conference calls, kind of like conference call would fit into video conference. We also have recorded presentation. So I want to show the difference between those two. So, like we just said for conference calls or for video conference, those are live. So make sure that you practice beforehand, because if you make a mistake, that is it. You can't really take it back. And again, the speaker should have the audience introduce themselves if you're in a small room. But for a recorded presentation, and we're actually going to be doing a few of these in this unit, so get excited, yeah. You have the ability to retry until you get the presentation that you want. So also, like, if you, not also, but so if you're giving a speech and you say something stupid or you goof up and you just want to start over, you can. Or if you record it and you don't like it, you can try again. That's something really great about recorded presentations. Just make sure you actually take advantage of that. Like, when I get a recorded presentation and it's not super good, I'm like, well, why didn't you just re-record it? Or why didn't you just edit that out? I don't understand. So take advantage of this lesson to retry. Here are some commonalities though between conference calls and recorded presentations. So first, you must adhere to the rules and restrictions of your location. You need to be prepared for technological issues. So for video conferencing, make sure you have good internet, make sure your camera works, make sure your microphone is nice and clean. For recorded presentation, make sure you re-watch your video before you submit it, because I've had a few videos come through where someone like recorded a video, but only the audio was recorded and not the video. So make sure you prepare for technological issues. Make sure you're ready for lack of audience attention, because again, like, it's already hard enough to listen to a speech if the speaker's right in front of you. If they're not even in the room with you, a lot easier to kind of zone out. So make sure you are focusing on your delivery to make sure that you're being conversational and trying to engage your audience. And then lastly, remember that your location is part of your speech. So make sure it's what you want your audience to see. So just like your appearance needs to make sure you are put together and polished, so should your location be too. What I want to do now, we're going to watch this video together in a second, but for this one, you can just watch it on your own, it's in your notes. I want y'all to pause the video and then watch the Despicable Me clip. I want you to identify if it's a live presentation or if it's recorded. And then I want you to identify some things that Gru did well as a speaker and things that he could have improved on to make a better recorded speech. Or wait, it's not recorded. Well, shoot, I should give y'all the answer. Sorry, hopefully you'll miss that. So go ahead and pause the video and then watch the speech, figure out if it's live or recorded, and then point out some things he did well and things he could improve on. Okay, hopefully y'all paused it and watched the video. Now we're gonna watch this video. Same kind of thing. We want to figure out if it is live or if it's recorded. Then I want y'all to take into consideration how the speaker maintains a conversational dynamic. And then I want you to take note of how they use the location as part of their speech.
Hey brother! Just a quick warning, there are going to be Infinity War spoilers in this video as soon as the next sentence, so you have been warned. The Snap Band, Thanos' ultimate plan, which if accomplished will kill half of everything. 50-50, chosen at random. Yeah, random. I mean, oh my god, look, all of the original Avengers randomly survived. Like, imagine the snap happening during this scene in the first Avengers movie, and none of these guys cornflaking away. It's almost as if they included this huge cast of characters so these original few could remain. Also, did you guys know there's this handy website where you can go and find out if you survived the snap from Thanos? Or, if you don't feel like going to the website, you can just examine yourself to see if you're still alive. Or there's also these handy things called coins. Right, heads I live. But the real question for me isn't whether or not I was affected by the snap. No, what's more interesting to me is whether or not Thanos was affected by the snap. And today, we find out. And before we begin, just want to remind you guys that in addition to this channel, we also have a vlog that we upload every Monday where you can see all sorts of crazy behind-the-scenes things that happen.
Okay, so first, hopefully you can realize this is a recorded presentation. It is not live, because when he flips a coin and gets poofed away, that is clearly not a live thing. That is recorded. They have it, he's doing a voiceover now over this other footage, so that is recorded stuff. Excuse me. A second thing, this is a very conversational video. Feels like he's talking to me. I definitely don't feel like bored watching this. It's very like lively. He uses facial expressions and hand gestures, changes his tone of voice, like, oh, randomly snapped away. Um, and without context, it can be hard to know, like, oh, well, how does he do it? And so this channel is called Super Carlin Brothers. And so this is one brother, this is the other brother, it's Ben and Jay. And they're brothers, and they take turns kind of like making these videos to put on their YouTube channel. And their shtick is that, like, oh, they're talking to each other. So they start with saying, hey, brother Jay, today we're talking about a thing. And so they just act like they're talking to each other, plus millions of other people. But that's kind of their thing, is it's how they maintain their conversational dynamic. And so that could be something that you do. If you're like, man, okay, I'm just looking at this camera. How do I feel like I'm talking to a person and not just a camera? Well, you can try this. Just you're talking to somebody who you know and you love and you're comfortable with. And then last thing, you want your location to be part of your speech, and you can very much tell that is what they do. So you can see that this is the kind of where the shot ends, and there's nothing outside of it. It's really decorated a ton, and it's all really. It looks super kind of like random, but it's like very well organized and put together. All the things that are there are things they talk about on the show. So they have some Mickey ears. They talk about Disney stuff all the time. They have a Marvel shield. They talk about Marvel all the time. Sorry, Captain America shield. Talk about Marvel all the time. They have a Star Wars thing, Pixar thing, Harry Potter thing, because that's all the stuff that they talk about. And so their location very much is like part of their speech because it's all of the topics that they focus on. Um, and now this is because this is like what the background always looks like, and they always do stuff on this channel. If you're just giving a one-time speech and your background looks like that, it might be a little too much unless you like very much incorporate it and make it purposeful. So kind of just going back to our visual aid unit, like make sure just everything there should be useful and helpful for you and relevant. Last thing we'll say about online speeches. First, remember that your camera is your audience. So look it in the eye at eye level. So you might need to put your computer or your camera or your phone or whatever on like a stack of books or something if necessary. So that way the camera can be up looking you in the eye. So like this is how you should look. You should be looking directly at the camera, not us looking up your nose. That is the worst. I know we do that as like to be silly and like everyday stuff, but if you're doing like something for school or for work, you should do this, not this. So make sure you raise up your camera so that it's looking at you in the eye. And make sure you're looking at the camera, not at yourself on the screen. It's pretty apparent when you're watching a video of somebody and they're just looking at themselves the whole time. Like when you FaceTime, like, yeah, we mostly look at ourselves, but like you gotta look at the camera for when you're doing something for school or work. Next thing, put your notes in a place where your head isn't going to be bobbing up and down constantly to look at your notes and then back at the camera. So like if you have like your note cards just like sitting on the table in front of you, but your camera is like way up here. I'm making gestures. Y'all can't see it, but I can see them. But just imagine like you have note cards in your lap and then your camera is up where it is on your Chromebook or whatever laptop you're listening to this on. And your head be bobbing down to look at the notes and then back up to look at the camera and then down to look at the notes and then back up. And that's gonna be really distracting and annoying for your audience and probably for you. So that's why we use note cards, because note cards are much more easily and conveniently placed. So you can prop them up actually on your screen, or you can tape them even. I've had students who use sticky notes if they have to use an online speech. They'll just put their sticky notes up around the camera so that the eye contact is much more like fluid. Their like eyes are just moving to look at the notes and not their whole head having to move or bob up and down. So make sure you are considering that as you're getting ready to give an online speech. Third, don't get too close to the camera. Like this guy, he's way too close and I hate it. This is as close as you should get to the camera, like kind of like the middle of the chest and above is as much as we nearly need to see. So don't get too close. So for example, these people are all like, they're as close as you should get. I think this guy's kind of like perfect distance away. He should not have a window behind him though. That kind of bothers me because that creates like a weird glare on the screen and make him have like a weird shadow. So put that light in front of you, not behind you. And we don't really need to see your full body unless it's necessary for understanding. So like if you're giving some kind of speech about like business casual and we need to see the outfit that you're wearing is business casual because you're showing us what is and isn't that appropriate outfit, then we might need to see your full body in the video. Or if like another one of our students for his demonstration speech, he showed us how to do like a soccer thing. And so we very much needed to see his feet, but also need to see his face because facial expressions. So we would need to see the full body in that video, but otherwise you don't really need it. And then lastly, trim the beginning and end of your video when you can like see your arm stretching forward to stop and start recording. That just looks very tacky. So when you are doing an online speech that is recorded, of course, make sure that you like press start and then pause and then actually start giving your speech. And then when you finish, make sure you say your tie to attention getter and then pause and then reach forward to stop recording. So that way you've got that pause to make sure you actually have something to trim. Because if you just start your video and then start talking immediately, you're probably going to trim out part of your speech by trimming out your arm. So make sure there's a pause there so you can make sure you get like the arm part cut out. We're not cutting out any part of the actual speech. Second to last thing we're going to say today, we talked about our areas of context. We've talked about what's the purpose, who's the audience, what's the setting. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about our appearance. Y'all have seen in our grading criterias on our for our speeches that I always say appear. Hey, did you just feed him? What? Did you just feed him? No. Okay, good. I already fed him. Sorry. But so you've seen appearance promotes ethos. So we're really going to talk about like, okay, like what does that fully mean? So your appearance has to promote your ethos. Your ethos means why you're credible, why you're trustworthy. Marshall McLuhan is a communications scholar, and he once said, the medium is the message. So like the medium is like the way you're sending the message. So like the way you're using your setting, the way you are dressed is also a part of your message. So the way that you're dressed and also like how clean you appear subconsciously shows your audience how much effort you put into your appearance and your presentation. So like if I show up to class one day and I'm dressed like a hobo and I've got like dried mustard down my shirt, you're like, ooh, Miss White did not really care about class today. Same kind of thing for public speakers. If they show up and they're not really dressed super nice, and it's like, okay, they didn't really care. So your clothing and your hygiene do send a message about how much effort you really put into your appearance and thus your presentation. Your physical appearance can also support the argument and enhance your message. And your appearance can be part of your presentation if you use it effectively. So I think the baseball guys who did their speech, they wore their little baseball jerseys. Who was it? Hunter Mason did his little weightlifting speech, and so he wore his weightlifting clothes and talked about why those were important for the activity that he was doing. And so if you're gonna wear something besides like business casual for your speech, just make sure you like explain why it's helpful, why it's relevant, why it is part of your speech, why it is part of the message. Otherwise, we're just gonna dress pretty professionally. The way y'all dress for school is probably fine because y'all have to wear collars. We're gonna learn about how to kind of dress that up for certain contexts if necessary. We'll learn about that in the next video. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to deliver an impromptu speech. We're going to do this tomorrow, not today. I just want to give y'all a warning so you can start thinking about it. Start mentally preparing. So you're going to deliver a recorded presentation, and the subject is going to be your senior trip. If you didn't go on the senior trip, that's fine. Just talk about what you did while everyone else was gone. I'm going to have an outline on Google Classroom for y'all to complete. So please do this outline in that document. Don't complete it somewhere else. And again, I'm not going to upload this today because it's not going to be assigned today. I'm just giving y'all a heads up so you can start thinking about it and think about what you want to say. But I'm going to put the outline up tomorrow. You should wear what you normally wear to school. So just wear like a collared shirt. If you want to wear pajama pants, you can, because you probably won't be able to see the waist down. We shouldn't be able to see the waist down. But if you're going to stand up and we're going to see your full body at some point, make sure you have like nice pants on. If you can make your outfit part of your ethos, go for it. So like if you, I don't know, if you wore like exercise clothes, like athleisure stuff every day on senior trip, you can wear that. And if you make it part of your speech somehow. So if it can be credible, if it can be relevant, if it can serve a point, you can wear something else. Otherwise, just wear what you would wear to school. So here's the steps that are going to be involved with giving this impromptu. First, you're going to write your outline and prepare your speech like you would for any other impromptu. So write the outline. It's going to be really short, like only one main point. So just write the outline, flesh it out a little bit like you would for your impromptu. Then you're going to practice quite a few times. Then you're going to record your speech, watch your video, and re-record it as necessary. You can record your speech on your phone or on your computer. I would recommend if you record your speech on your phone, you can have your computer kind of behind it. You can have your notes on the computer to read, like we do it for a normal impromptu. But if you're doing your speech on your computer, you can have your notes up on your phone. I don't need y'all to make note cards for this, and unless you just really feel like it. But again, follow the same rules over here. Make sure that your notes are in a place where your head is not going to be like bobbing around trying to find your notes and going back to the camera. So write your outline, practice, record your speech, watch the video, record as you need to, upload the video to your school YouTube account. If you need help, watch this video that's in your notes. That video may not work for some of y'all if you have like restricted mode on your YouTube. So I'm going to upload a view peer version of it on Google Classroom. So upload the video to your school YouTube account and then copy and paste the link into the document where you prepped your outline. So in this outline that I'm going to give y'all in Google Classroom, and then where you prepped your outline and prepared your speech, put that link in the same document. But again, this is not for today. This is for tomorrow. I just want to give y'all a heads up so you can start thinking about it. And that's all we've got for today. So make sure you watch the little Groove video. And then I think that's all you have to do. Have a good day.